everyone, Linda here, the scrapbooking photographer. Today I am joining in on Ginger's Corners hops, and this time we are making an embellishment pack from scraps to embellishment. Well, it's not all scraps for me because I've had to get out some new pieces of cardstock. Today's embellishment pack is music related. It's called Musical Chairs, but just so long as it's a musical theme. So what I have done is chosen my colour scheme from little bits and pieces that I have available. And this beautiful music score arrived today in the post from Teri Rice Designs in New Zealand. So I would like to use that at some point. It's a very aged looking piece of music and it has some fairly good intense music scores on it. So if I can use that, I will. Also from Teri Rice, I have these pieces of wood chip or wood veneer embellishments. So I'll try and use those too. And that was actually my inspiration to try and use a title which will be Music Star. So for this embellishment pack we need a title, 2 embellishments and a journaling block. So as some of you may know, I am a Stampin' Up demonstrator and we have a beautiful die that cuts out a whole alphabet and then we keep the letters that we don't use in one, and I've managed to get Music Star out of one that I cut out of black some time ago. So I haven't had to cut a new one, and that's why I've got these letters here ready to go. So I'll pop those there so I don't lose them. And then I've got some black cardstock from Stampin' Up, and also as a combination colour I've got basic beige, but I will be roughing that up a little bit because it just looks a bit too clean against the other bits, but it blends well with the other bits and pieces that I've got. So I think we'll start with the title, which as I say is Music Star. I really like this lace, it's so pretty. But that's the only piece I've got, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to stretch it over 4 things or if I'm going to have to limit it to 2 or maybe 3. Anyway, let's see how we go. I'm going to start with the basic beige, and before I do anything to rough it up a bit, I'll just check how tall we need it to fit these letters, and I think you can probably get away with 1 inch, but I'm going to make it 1 inch plus 1/8 just to be on the safe side. You can always trim it down later, but you can't put it back once you've trimmed it off. Now you can see it probably is a little big, but what I thought we might do is put some tape behind here. I just want to see how these letters show up on top. Maybe if we put it rather than putting the letters straight on top, we could blend it together like that. I think that will work, and then we'll put a black frame around it. Okay, so we have a bit of a plan, but I do want to make this look a little bit grungy. So what I'll do is use a textured stamp, I think, and go over the back of it. And this is a relatively new stamp from Stampin' Up called Elements of Text, and there are these different sorts of text and splodges which are just great for providing a little bit of a background and softening that plain harshness of the basic beige. So what we might do is start with the dots, I think. Let's just pop it on a block. And we can see through it, and we don't need it too high, and we'll just use perhaps not a black, but a dark grey. So we'll just put that on top of some sponge. And this is quite a firm mat to stamp on because you don't want these little bits that get caught on the edges of the cling stamps to come out onto your cardstock, so you just need to be a little bit careful. I can turn it around so that it doesn't all look the same. Now I'm not sure how much of this we're going to need either, because I'm not sure how big the title's going to be. So I'm really just having a play. Taking that stamp off. I really like this set. It is just awesome. So I'm also going to use this little squarish text, which is quite small. It looks a little bit like a typewriter. So we'll just whiz along the top here, remembering that we've got the ribbon going underneath. So that just gives us a little bit of text in the background. And I'm also going to use this with my door bar and go around the outside. And obviously I'll have to come back and do the edge when I've trimmed it off. But doing it this way first will give us an idea of what it's going to look like. And I'm not doing the bottom because we decided to put the tape along the bottom there. Okay, so with our sticky, got some old paper here. I'll just pop it on so that we don't get sticky in the wrong place. And then I can go along the bottom with this glue, which I find the easiest way to attach the tape. It's better than the double-sided tape. Easier to work with. Move it away from that so it doesn't stick there. And then we can just pop this along the bottom where we want it. Making sure it's relatively even. Turn it over, and that's relatively even there, so that's good. And we'll trim this off enough so that I can wrap it round. On the back side. Now we'll put these letters on and see how wide we need it. It doesn't matter if it kind of goes over the top or underneath the tape, because it just kind of adds to the depth and the texture. U and S is here somewhere. So there'll be a list underneath of everybody else who's taking part in this hop, and there's also a playlist which is linked underneath in the description as well. So if you go in there and click on that link, you'll be able to see everybody who has contributed to these hops. It's one long playlist for all the different hops we do. So each month there's a colour one, and this in the embellishment pack, and different ones for different topics on the way through. So if you go and look at the playlist, you'll see lots of inspiration and ideas on how to make whatever you're wanting to make in your craft room. The swaps are done on Ginger's Corner. If you haven't joined Ginger's Corner Facebook group, it's a great place to go so that you can take part in the swaps. We have a branch in New Zealand that also takes in Australia, and unfortunately sometimes the postage is a bit prohibitive for us to swap between the two countries. But for those of you who are in more densely populated countries, you don't have a problem like that, and you can swap with somebody closer to your region. Okay, so you can see that we have got a little bit too much there, so what we're going to do is trim this and wrap it round so that we've got that continuous look around the outside. So I'll just put a little bit of glue on there and wrap it like so, and finish this edge off to match the others. Okay, now we'll get a little piece of the black behind here, and also I'm going to just rip so that we have a ripped edge all around the outside. Quickly whiz around and take off the edges, and we'll also tone those torn bits down with a little bit of the same ink that we've used around the edge of the title. I didn't really have a plan when I'm starting today, so I started with a colour scheme, and it's kind of grown from that. So it's quite exciting to see how it's coming together. Now I don't like that together like that, but a little bit of black in between I think is the way to go. So what I'm going to do is attach that on there so that we can get the right size trimmed. Nice and square-ish. Okay, and I'll just trim that down so we've got the same frame all the way around. And then we'll pop it on here. And I think that music just gives us a little bit of a authentic look on the background. So we could put it on an angle. Not really into angles, I do prefer things to be straight. So we'll do that. Put it to one side because we'll still add some stars or musical wooden bits, but we'll just leave it there so that we can work on the two embellishment packs in the journaling box. So the journaling box I think we'll do along the same lines as we'd started there. So I'll come back to the basic beige and make a box. What shape box shall we use? That's the thing. We might just go 3 inches square to start with. I think 3 inches square is a little small really, particularly once it's decorated. So I'm going to go with 3 inches wide but 6 inches long for our journaling box. So remembering this is going, you know, probably on a double page spread. So we want this to be similar to that so that it matches. So I'm going to make a background for it in the black cardstock, the same as we have on that. And now obviously I haven't stuck it down yet because we'll still do the texture on the back. So what I'm going to do is go back to the stamp set and use the same stamp combination. Pop it on a piece of rough paper because I'm just going to go around the outside with this and get a few little dots just so that it looks like it's part of the set. Doesn't matter how many we get on there or not each time, just always around the outside. Turning it around a bit to give it a little bit of variety. I'll just give that a clean, put that away, and get this one out again and do the same thing just around the outside, and that'll give us some continuity with the title. Oops. Right, so then if we go around the edge, oops, better give that a clean. And then use the dauber to go around the outside like we did on the title. So if you have that as your title, that is your, has to go on here. Right, so we'll stick that on there. Because we've got 3 lines here, what we're going to do is again use our ripping, and this does take up a little bit of space. Let's try and get this one down the middle. Not sure if this will work, but we'll give it a go. And again down the middle here. Off these edges so that we have torn edges all the way around. Okay, now putting this back in here, I think we could do 1, 2, might not need the 3, not all of it obviously. We're going to just rip it there. I want both ends. Don't need the bit in the middle. If we do that, there we go. And then with this third one, I wonder what it would look like if we did that, or maybe we'll make a decision and stick with it and have it going that way. Otherwise, I'm always conscious of things that you add into a page taking over from what you've actually trying to show on the page, which is actually our photos and things, isn't it? So I think we'll do this and keep it that size and keep it going that way. So okay, so that gives us that journaling box, and then we need 2 embellishments. So I think what we're going to do there is make a couple of tags. What we'll do first with the black is make the tags the size we want, and then make the inside, because I want them to be framed like this. So we'll make 2 tags about that wide, so we need to cut them out first. Right, so I've got 2 pieces of black cardstock 2.5 inches wide. So we need to find the top a little bit. Now, if you've got a die that cuts tags, then that would work fine. I do have one, but it's not as big as I would like, so I'm going to do it this way. Now, if I put it with a straight line at each side, I can work out that the middle is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is there. And I want to come in, so that's the middle, that's good to know. And we want to come into maybe 1.5, and 1.5 there. And we want to come down to about there. So I'm cutting both of these at the same time, going from this side to that side, and then that side to that side. Right. So there we have 2 tags that we can use. Now I'll do the punches in the top as well while I'm here. And we're coming down the middle. Okay. So there's our 2 tags. So we want a piece of basic beige that is going to come just inside, leaving a small frame around the outside. So this was 2.5 wide. So we're going to make a piece of basic beige that's going to fit inside at 2 inches wide. And then that gives us a bit of a frame, and we want the same frame at the bottom. So we'll trim it about there. I made 2 the same size, and they should fit like that. Cool. So these are the ones that we're decorating. Those are the bits for the outside. So I'll leave them on here so that you can see them against the black. And of course what we're going to do first is come back with our stamp and make them match the other one in the background. We'll start off with our circles or splashes. They don't have to be the same, and they don't have to be symmetrical or even the same intensity. Okay, so we'll clean that off. Then come back with our text stamp. Same thing. Okay, now if you keep going back to the tags, you can keep an eye on how things are developing, like that. Now in the heading and in the journaling box, we've used the black, which we've got in the back of the tags. We've done our front a little bit similar. So we need to use a little bit of this tape and some of this old music score as well. So what I'm going to do is tear this up a little bit and make a little bit of a collage of these bits. These are just bits that were left over, and it doesn't matter which side you use. Paper behind again. And my glue stick. So when you're doing this, it's a good idea to have glue all over the piece that you're sticking down. That's probably enough. And the same on this one. Now we've got some of this tape left. We might just put that along the bottom, and I think we've got enough for both. And I'm going to put a little black strip in there as well underneath, just to differentiate between it. So that's not quite 2.5 inches, so we'll make it 2.5 inches. So that's the same width as that tag. And then we can put this on the bottom, leaving a little bit of black above and below. Don't worry if the glue comes out the side, because it dries clear. Trim that off. And we'll do another one on this end so that we can have the same type thing. And then we'll trim these so that they've got the same amount of black above as they have below. can go along here like that. So I'll pop them on with my tape runner. Line them up a little bit and come back and check what they look like on our tags. Yep, now they still need, to my mind, a feature in the middle there. But we do have this little piece of lace, and I'm thinking I might do the same with that at the top as, let's have a look, that there. Quite like the lace going right across the top there so that we can see it around the outside. So I think I'll put that on, stick these down now, and then there's a little bit of glue across the top. Oops, the other end I think is better. Should have my paper underneath. I want glue on the mat, and then I'll just put this, did I get glue across the top? Now you could stitch these on if you're a stitcher. You could stitch across there too, but I quite like seeing a little bit of black between the holes in the embroidery, or the lace, whatever you call it. My hand has still got glue on them, so just stick to the shape of the tag. Cool. And then we'll do the same with this one, and that makes that lace go up there, go across both of them, so that's good. And we don't throw much out in this house, so we'll just reuse those bits that I cut off the edges. They'll be handy for a different project somewhere along the line, or we might be able to add them into our journaling box. We'll have a look if it needs anything else when we're finished. Okay, so we'll just leave those to dry, and then I still think they need something in the middle. So what we're going to do is use our wooden embellishments that I showed you before, but because they are wooden, the colour isn't quite right. So I'm going to get a circle of black and put that in the middle there. I think these are big enough. If they're not, I can go and get a bigger one. But I'm kind of thinking that sort of look. Okay, so we've got a little star that we could put on that one, and we've got that one on the title. I might just leave that one like that, and then we've got those ones left to put on the other bits. So we'll pop those aside to dry before we put the string in, and then bring back these other two. So we've got the heading and the journaling box, and I think this needs a star on it somewhere. Something like that. So that gives us this little group of 3 quavers. And this little star will cover that piece there that isn't ideally worked there. And then this bigger one over here. I've got these two pieces of string which I'll thread through our tags. I haven't put an eyelet or anything onto the tag. I figure if somebody wants that, they can do it in a colour of their choice. And that might be a way to bring in some red or yellow or whatever from the photos. So for my embellishment pack, I've got a journaling box, a title, and 2 tags. I really hope you've enjoyed watching them come together and get a chance to have a play yourself. As I say, there's links underneath to Ginger's Corner and to the playlist for the other people that will give you some inspiration that are playing along in this video, in this playlist. And happy crafting, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.